Welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Cincinnati. My name is Reverend Connie Simon. Our urban community welcomes all with love, supports learning and spiritual growth, serves our wider community, and works for justice, equity, and inclusion. We're glad you're here with us this morning. If you'd like more information about our community or its work, please email us at member-care@firstuu.com. Our Heart and Hand at Home online auction begins today. All proceeds from our auction go to the church's capital fund, which helps finance needed projects and improvements to the church building. This year, online, you'll find that we still have more items than ever offered. Art, baby items, books, clothing, crafts, health and beauty items, home and garden items, music, toys and games, and traditional favorites such as food, events, gift cards, tickets, and services. If you'd like more information about the auction, please contact any of the auction team members, Laurie Frank, Molly Gillespie, Laura Hobbs, Linda Miltner, Denise Olden, or Jessica Stoddard. If you're watching this service and you're not a member of First Church and would still like to participate, send an email to member-care@firstuu.com.
Just a you girl, living in a virtual world. Bought a ticket for the auction, clicking anything. Buckeyes and a cabin in the woods, baby Schaefer chopping firewood. For $1 or $2 you can't get anything. Singer underneath the moon, or call and get your piano tuned. Like COVID in 2020, the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Use waiting, standing by their monitors. It's they don't know what to buy. Dinner from Ireland, or goodies from Michigan, or get high on a mushroom high. It's family friendly. Working hard from my home, get a ride from Betsy Wolves, paying anything to Lois Gish to pet her goats. Some will win, some will lose, some will get a truck with finance dues. Like bylaws and committees, the list goes on and on. Back in and turn its shadows to light. First Church Don't stop your bidding. Hold on to that item. Don't let another minute go by. Don't stop your bidding. Buy it now for a little more. It's not like there's anything else to do. Don't stop your bidding. Hold on to that item. First Church is counted on you. Don't stop. Even though we did keep clicking, we're done now. Seriously.
As Unitarian Universalist, a burning light in a chalice is the symbol of our faith. This morning, we light our chalice with an affirmation that our lives are interconnected, that we are called to live lives guided by the values of justice, compassion, and equity, that we are called to work for the beloved community, for our generation, and for generations to come.
I Am Helping by Mercer Mayer. I am a good helper. I help wash the clothes. I help get them dirty too. I help sweep the porch. I help cut the grass. I help make the beds. I help take out the trash. I help with the shopping. Please. I help feed the baby. I help burp him too. I help fix the window. I help dust the furniture. I help vacuum the rug. I help pick apples. I help weed the garden. I help watch the baby. I help make a pie. I help eat the pie too. Mom and Dad sure are lucky that I am such a good helper. Helping is great, and we all like to help because it makes us feel good inside. But sometimes, when we go to help, we break things. We make a mess. And we put our own desires above those who we claim to be helping. And in the end, we hurt people. I wonder, have you ever done any of these things while you were trying to help? I wonder, is there something we can do so that we become better helpers?
We pause now for a moment to honor our joys and sorrows, those moments of sadness and the moments of joy that we've experienced since last we were together. Those things that remind us that we are all interconnected beings, interconnected with other humans and animals and with the earth and sky. I offer for you a prayer by Reverend Lynn Cox entitled A Web of Holy Relationships. Spirit of life, who draws us together in a web of holy relationships, make your presence known with us and in us and among us. Remind us that we are not alone in history. Ignite us with the courage of the living tradition. Remind us that we are not alone in entering the future. Anchor us with patience and perseverance. Remind us that we are not alone in our times of grief and pain. Comfort us with your spirit, manifest in human hands and voices. Remind us that we are not alone in joy and wonder. Inspire us to honor and extend the beauty we find in this world. Divine music of the universe, let our hearts beat in diverse and harmonious rhythms, cooperating with an everlasting dance of love. May we move with the rhythms of peace. May we move with the rhythms of compassion. May we move with the rhythms of justice. Source of stars and planets and water and land, open our hearts to all of our neighbors. Open our souls to a renewal of faith. Open our hands to join together in the work ahead. So be it, blessed be, and amen. Our flowers this morning are from the Heart and Hand at Home auction team. Looking forward to our first online auction.
There is more lost somewhere. There is more
what brought me into IHN was I was living in a house, and when I moved into the house, it was a complete wreck. It was a complete wreck, infested with mice, ceilings caving in, and he kept on saying, oh, I would fix this, I would fix that. No water, no gas. It was just a million things wrong with the place. But I had to keep paying him rent so that I could have somewhere to stay. Meanwhile, looking for somewhere to stay. When I got fed up with giving him money and him not fixing stuff, he gave me an eviction notice. So yeah, I called 381 SAFE, and they got me into IHN. Initially, they had told me that just me and my 3 kids could come, and I was a nervous wreck. I'm like, I gotta be there by 3. It's the middle of the day. Curfew's at 3. I'm not gonna like that. I was in a panic, but I said, okay, this is my only option, you know. I'm like, God got me. I'm gonna see this out. It'll be, you know, okay. Just do it, Ashley. I was in a panic and crying because I'm like, you know, we're a family of 7, and we also have a dog, and I'm like, I don't want us to be split up. I want all of my kids together, even my stepkids. So I called the office. And I spoke with Hume. And I told him, I said, listen, they said I only could bring 3 of my kids, and I got 2 more boys, and I don't want my kids separated. I just broke down, and he was like, give me 10 minutes and I'll call you back. He called me back, and he's like, both of your kids, both of your other boys can come with you today, and then your husband can come Sunday. So I'm like, whew. Now, I wasn't even thinking about the dog at the time, but when I got over there to the office that day and I was doing my paperwork with Miss Kelly, she's like, don't you have a dog? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, you want your dog to come? I'm like, my dog can come too? And I literally just broke down. I'm like, I never heard of a place to take the woman, the kids, her man, and the dog. I'm like, what kind of place is this? I stayed at quite a few different congregations over my stay, and one of the first ones was in College Hill with Cindy and Dave. They were amazing people, and the volunteers that they had participating with them at that church, they were great. They were great with my kids. They were all respectful and nice. I mean, they gave us gift cards. They gave my kids gifts. They were amazing. They made sure that we were comfortable. They showed concern and compassion for everyone's, you know, situation. Another church that I stayed at was Glendale. The people there, Miss Denise, she was, I don't even know a word for her. She was amazing. I was down in the dumps about having to spend my son's 2nd birthday in a shelter, but she made everything all right. She made everything all right. She gave my son a birthday party. She went and bought him gifts. She made him yellow cupcakes because that's his favorite color. And we did the fire truck there. We had a lot of activities and stuff there. It was an amazing experience meeting those people at the church in Glendale. I thank them for everything that they did for me and my family. IHN fixed everything. My son is happy to have his own room because before moving here at my last house, he didn't have his own room. He shared a room with my 2 stepsons. So now being here in this house, he truly appreciates having his own room. I mean, being here has worked out not just for me, but for my kids as well, and it's greatly appreciated.
Hello, everyone. My name is Beth McDaniel. Participating in the Interfaith Hospitality Network is one of First Church's core social justice projects, and I've been helping to coordinate our efforts at First Church for about 1.5 years. At least 1 year of that has been anything but typical, as you all know. I finally got the IHN closet beautifully organized sometime last February and haven't been back since, unfortunately. So first I want to give you a little bit of background about IHN, and then I'll talk a little bit about what last year was like for us, and then what we anticipate for this year. IHN Greater Cincinnati's mission is to provide homeless families with emergency shelter and hospitality through interfaith communities, and to work with families to find and retain stable housing. IHN does much more than provide emergency shelter. They also provide critical wraparound services and continue to support families once they've been housed. IHN Greater Cincinnati's vision includes keeping families, including pets, together during the crisis of homelessness, helping families to reestablish long-term, safe, affordable, and pet-friendly housing, reducing the rate of recidivism, so keeping families housed, and reducing the effects of the trauma of homelessness on parents, children, and pets. Since 2006, First Church has been part of a network of congregations that open our buildings to provide food, shelter, safety, and hospitality to local families experiencing homelessness. First Church has 4 partners in this work: Heritage Unitarian, St. John's Unitarian, Southern Baptist Church, and the Cincinnati Mennonite Fellowship. While we host families at First Church, our partner congregations provide volunteers and financial support. We've typically hosted families for 5 weeks per year. Each hosting week requires about 60 volunteers. During a normal hosting week, we need volunteers to cook and serve meals, provide entertainment for families, and serve as evening and overnight hosts. What I love about IHN is that it is a local, community-based response to homelessness. If you've ever wondered, what can I do about homelessness? This is something you can do. Participating in IHN is also a great way to utilize our building to meet the needs of the community. During the week, the space that IHN families occupy is typically not utilized, so I think it makes absolute sense to open our doors in this way. From an Opening Hearts perspective, it also gives us an opportunity to stand shoulder to shoulder with people from other faith traditions and people who are experiencing homelessness, all who may have different perspectives or experiences than our own, which is a great opportunity for opening our hearts and growing in our faith. And honestly, overall, participating in IHN is really a fun and rewarding volunteer experience for the whole family. So I encourage you to get involved if you're interested. Eventually, we will be back to in person, I promise. So what happened last year? As with everything in 2020, COVID-19 completely changed the way IHN and local host congregations served families. So rather than being hosted in congregations or at Grace Place in Northside, where families would have to share bathroom and food prep facilities, families were moved into extended stay type hotel rooms to ensure proper social distancing and to keep families safe. In this setting, families, in the extended stay setting, families have their own kitchenette, bathroom, and sleeping space and are able to practice social distancing just as housed families do. IHN has maintained 10 to 12 families at a time in the hotel setting since March, with no solid timeline for ending this practice. Our first hosting week of 2019 was scheduled for April 5th and did not happen due to COVID-19 shelter-in-place orders. In fact, due to COVID-19, we were not able to host in person at all last year. So, and to give you some perspective of what this has all meant financially for IHN's projected expenses for last year were $295,630. Their actual expenses for the year were $598,275. That's a 200% increase, or a difference of almost $300,000. It took the generosity of our entire community to help IHN meet this challenge on behalf of the families they serve. That included the United Way of Greater Cincinnati, the CARES Act, and increased support from local congregations, foundations, and individuals. I am so proud to report back to you today that First Church contributed an incredible $15,254 to IHN in 2020. And that does not include all our in-kind donations of food, activity kits, clothes, toys, Metro passes, bagels, an industrial freezer, and lots of Kroger gift cards and other items that were dropped off at the IHN offices. A special thanks goes out to Tom and Karen Rohr for coordinating food donations from Shiloh and that industrial freezer and the bagels, among other things, and to some exceptionally generous and committed members of our church. Thank you for all you did for IHN last year, even though we couldn't be in person. And I also want to share that our partner congregations contributed a phenomenal $5,118. Together, that's more than $20,000, not including donated items and donations that were not marked as being from members of First Church or from our partner congregations. That is such a phenomenal accomplishment and such an inspiring outpouring of love from our community, and it really has made a difference for local families through IHN. So what about this year? Like last year, this year remains uncertain. Our first hosting week is scheduled for March 28th, which is the week of Easter, but it is unlikely we'll be in person. The best case scenario would be that some families have been transitioned to Grace Place in Northside, and we can host them there. Hosting at Grace Place would likely mean having volunteers serve as overnight hosts and then recruiting people who are willing to do grocery and meal drop-offs so we can provide our families with breakfast, food to take with them for lunch, and a hot meal for dinner. We have been asked by IHN if we are able to help cover the cost of rent at Grace Place when and if we are able to host families there. The current cost is $575 a week, plus we spend about $200 per hosting week on groceries. So if we were able to host all 5 weeks at Grace Place, we would need to raise at least $4,000 to cover the cost of rent and groceries. On the other hand, if families continue to be in the hotel, we will provide as much food as needed, as well as gift cards or other requested items from IHN. We will also provide as much financial assistance as we can to help offset the cost of hosting families in the hotel. While it's not likely, it's within the realm of the possible. We can always hope that by the end of the year, we could be hosting in our building again, though that decision will require, of course, the approval of Reverend Connie, the board, First Church staff, and our members. If and when that happens, we will likely need to make some investments in our own equipment and facilities, which have not been in use for some time. Prior to COVID, we had Safeguard at a kind of nest egg to be used for capital improvements like repairing or replacing cots, purchasing new window coverings, bedding, etc. However, during this past year, we have diverted most of that money to help IHN continue to house families during the pandemic. We have about $1,000 left in our budget, which will likely need to be used once we return to in-person hosting. So what can you do? Please consider making a donation to this month's special plate collection to support local families experiencing homelessness through IHN. This money will be used to help cover the cost of the hotel or pay rent at Grace Place, as well as provide families with food and other needed support during our hosting weeks. We are also going to send around a sign of genius for our March 28th hosting week in case families are able to be at Grace Place. Please sign up to be an overnight host if you're able to be in person by then. We also need volunteers who are willing to buy groceries and drop off dinners that week. Also, please stay on the lookout for updates in the social justice newsletter about how to get involved. And you can follow IHN on social media so you can learn more about their programs and needs. By sharing posts with your network, you can help to spread the word about their work. First Church has shown exceptional generosity and commitment to IHN, and I am so grateful to all of you. Thank you for your continued support for families this year, whatever it may bring.
Our guest speaker this morning is Dr. Elias Ortega. Dr. Ortega is an interdisciplinary scholar who received his MDiv and PhD from Princeton Theological Seminary. He also holds a BA in Communications Arts and Sciences and Philosophy and Religion from Calvin College. Prior to becoming the president of Meadville Lombard Theological School, Dr. Ortega served as associate professor of social theory and religious ethics at Drew University Theological School. At Drew, he served as Dean's Council Chair, was a member of the Digital Humanities Advisory Committee and the Title IX Committee. His primary teaching and research areas are the sociology of religion, religious ethics, cultural sociology, social movements, critical theory, Africana studies, Latinx cultural studies. In addition to teaching at Drew, he is also taught at Princeton University, Princeton Theological School, New Brunswick Theological Seminary, Vanderbilt Divinity School, the College of New Jersey, and Mercer County Community College. He currently serves the larger Unitarian Universalist movement as a member of the Commission on Institutional Change. In recent years, his denominational service included a term in the Religious Education Credentialing Committee, and from 2015 to 2017, he served as a mentor in the UUA's Growing Racial Justice Initiative. During that same period, he was co-chair of the UU Legislative Ministry of New Jersey's Dismantling Racism group. He also helped to launch the Drew Freedom School Initiative, a social justice program that provides training in nonviolent resistance and community organizing. He has been a volunteer, provided strategic planning and program support to various community organizations, including the Student Outreach and Academic Reinforcement Program at Bethel AME in Morristown, New Jersey, at the New Jersey Parent Caucus, a mental health and juvenile justice advocacy group, and the Sila Maria Calderon Foundation. Please welcome Dr. Elias Ortega.
Dear First Unitarian Universalist Church of Cincinnati, it is a pleasure to be here in worship with you this morning. I am grateful to Reverend Connie Simons, a dear alum of Midville Lombard Theological School, the institution that I represent, for this invitation. And I extend greetings from Midville Lombard Theological School, from our faculty, our board of trustees, our students, and our alumni body. It is my joy to be here with you this morning, gathered in worship. This morning, as we are gathered here through the magic of technology, wherever we are, we have come together with different paths of life. We bring together different experiences, but perhaps we are gathered here together with one common goal. We are gathered by a singular hope to live out of our commitments in the work of making the beloved community a reality in our lives, in our congregations, and in the larger world. I want to start the words that I'm sharing with you this morning with a faith declaration. And while it is true that in the expansive boundaries drawn by our living faith, we may be weary of both statements of faith, it is also true that as a faith movement, we have, in the words of religious educator Maria Harris, fashioned ourselves into a particular kind of people. The ways in which we fashion ourselves are evident in how we worship. They're evident in our teachings, in what we proclaim we do, and in how we live our lives. As Unitarian Universalists, we have weaved our shared principles. We are weaved by our shared principles. We have fashioned ourselves into the kinds of people that are moved to affirm our inherent worth and dignity. We are a people that understand ourselves compelled into living lives working for justice, for equity, and compassion. We are a people with a shared commitment to propose and promote the acceptance of one another. And more than acceptance, we join our life through a common purpose that is manifested in the ways in which we encourage one another to heal from our religious traumas and to delve deeper and with curiosity into practices and disciplines that nourish, nurtures, and cultivate our spiritual growth. We have agreed to fashion ourselves into a peculiar kind of people who is brave enough to guide our conduct in ways that afford us the freedom to seek for truth and to strive for greater knowledge. A high-stake freedom indeed that is possible because and through our conscious practices of democratic living. But being fashioned as a people is an ongoing project. We continue in the work of fashioning and refashioning ourselves to live up to the goal of fostering a world community where peace, justice, and liberty is not just for some, but is large enough and brave enough and robust enough to encompass all of us in their embrace. We continue to chart a way forward in this living tradition that inspires us to be better for our sake and for the sake of the wholeness of the world that we co-construct and that we will entrust as inheritance to those who will come after us. What a beautiful work this is. And it is because of this long-reaching aspiration that we seek to truly fashion a world where justice is the ground of our liberty, and a world where liberty leads to peaceful coexistence. It is because of this that we strive even higher still and consider ourselves accountable to the interdependent web of all that exists, because we recognize that we are also part of it. It is because of how we have fashioned ourselves as a people that I believe that Unitarian Universalism is a faith for today. And I understand this promise. It is a commitment to help heal a wounded world. I understand this as a promise to be committed to do the work to live out of what we proclaim as our deepest aspirations. I think that drinking from our 6 sources of inspiration and living lives that draw nourishment from our shared principles, that we will go a long, long way in making our faith a beacon of hope for others. That is to say that I consider that to live into our commitments requires that we understand this promise as a way to engage us in the work of nurturing our own liberation. And we can do this by taking our faith with the seriousness it requires in order to be more than just a Sunday morning congregational club. As a faith community that is called to live into and out of our commitments, we should be captivated by the beauty of our faith journeys. We should be captivated by the theological questions that we face in our individual lives and in our collective experiences, and the ways in which we push us to come up with solutions for the deeper challenges of today. As a faith community, if we are earnest in the task of working through the theological questions we face and the answer that we give them, then we can reshape, reframe, and transform how we understand our place and responsibility to the world in which we live fully, and to do so out of a sense of being called into service. You see, to me, this is what it lays at the heart of living into our commitments. Many of us Unitarian Universalists have an uneasy relationship with theology. We prefer instead to put a premium on the works we do. You see, and in so doing, we don't oftentimes take stock of why we do the work that we do. Let me say that again, but a little bit differently. It is easy for us Unitarian Universalists to focus on what we do and how we do it. But we may not be able to speak with clarity about the inspiration that moves us to do the work that we do. And yes, we are inspired by our shared commitments to do works of justice and compassion. But why are we moved in a sacred community and as a faith to do these works? This is the challenge that lay at the heart of the work of the Commission of Institutional Change, of which I was a member. And for us, we frame this as a question. Can we call us in to nurture and cultivate and live out of the theological dimensions of how we extend hospitality to others in ways in which we carry our work in our congregations and in the world? And in so doing, what are the theological foundations that help us, sustain us, and hold us accountable to this work? At this moment in my life, I say that my answer to that question was and is a resolute yes. Yes, we can both recognize that our collective spiritual journeys gather us from the birth religious past, and that we are gathered with a passion to the works of justice. And in so doing, we have enlarged the boundaries of our faith house. Some of these paths we have to recognize have been inspiring and nourishing, but other paths and other walks have been painful and have left deep scars in many of us. It is likely true that for many of us, the Judeo-Christian tradition was our first faith home. It is just as likely that many of us here today were wounded by aspects of this tradition. And some other of our members have been harmed by others. And we have gathered because we are passionately committed to living lives of justice and engaging with others in shaping this world into one that is more livable for us and generations to come. But in order to do that effectively as a faith community, we have to also be clear of our theological commitments and the spiritual practices that sustain us. And part of that work is healing our spirits and healing ourselves from our religious and spiritual trauma so that we can be encouraged and bold enough to speak theologically is painful and arduous work. But in order to heal, we have to put in the necessary work. Spiritual and religious injuries, just like any other injury, does not get better by ignoring them. In fact, if we ignore an injury and we postpone tending to it, it will not only make it worse, it will also usher a more arduous journey towards recovery. And those of us who have recovered from an injury know that the path is painful, yes, but it's so necessary for our well-being. Whether the culprit of our injuries was a Judeo-Christian tradition or another faith tradition, our shared Unitarian Universalist faith calls us to encourage one another into spiritual growth individually and as congregations. We cannot grow into our spiritual life and as a faith movement if we approach our sacred work as being faith first responders. If we limit the reach of our spiritual and theological community to providing enough care to stabilize a faith emergency and patch each other up just enough so that we can leave the faith emergency room, we have fallen short of the good news that is Unitarian Universalism. Living into our commitments and living up to the transformative power, to justice-centric, peace-promoting, and life-sustaining faith such as ours demands that we speak truthfully from the sources and the roots that ground and inspire our work. Such a faith is a bold faith. It is a faith that, in the words of Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd, and I'm paraphrasing here, needs to articulate a theology deep enough to heal as theodicy to help us understand how evil, pain, suffering, and trauma coexist with the sacred. We need to articulate such a theology to demonstrate our ability to bring about change in this flawed and broken world. And I am inspired by those words of Reverend Nancy MacDonald Ladd. And I say yes to taking seriously the responsibility to heal those of us who have been wounded by religious trauma, to create a place to rest, a place of refuge, but more than just a place of refuge, a place where we can launch liberatory lives and works. And beloved, we should also say yes to live up to the promise of our faith, to dare to be healed, and to hold ourselves accountable to the principles we hold so dearly. To uphold the worth and dignity of all, to work for the promotion of justice, equity, and compassion in our relationships, in all our relationships. To strive for the acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth. To uphold the free and responsible search for truth and meaning. To safeguard the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. To nurture the goal of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice, not just for some, but as the inheritance of all of us and the generations to come. To respect the interdependent web of all existence of which we are part of. You see, and as we fashion ourselves as a people that live into these shared commitments in our congregations and in the world, we will see the fruits brought forth by equity, justice, and compassion. And as I conclude my words to you this morning, I want to do so with a question to which I will provide a short answer. As we strive to live into our commitments, what does our faith demand of us? As we strive to live into our commitments, what does our faith demand of all of us? I answer that question as follows. Our faith demands that we respond with faithfulness to the task we have committed ourselves to when we declare that Unitarian Universalism was our chosen faith home. That we bear witness to our faithfulness through how we live into our shared commitments and aspirations, and to show to ourselves and the world in our works how we live out of the liberative hope of our living tradition. That we be bold enough in our search for justice, equity, in order to embrace our collective responsibility in how we search for truth, in how we guide ourselves with compassion, and in how we join each other in the pursuit of communal belonging. Our shared faith calls us into right relationship to what we profess as a community in search of the beloved community. To be a community that centers the hard work of healing and transformation over personal wants and comfort. To be a beloved community that is willing to commit to the hard work of personal and institutional change, to do the labor of transformation to bring us closer to our goal. Faith work is hard work. Faith work is demanding work. Yes, faith work is hard work and demanding work that, if engaged faithfully, has the potential to impact and transform our being, our spirit, and our intellect into deeper lives and deeper interrelationship with one another and the world. Being faithful requires a serious commitment not to dogmatism or to passive assent to propositional truth, whether progressives or conservative, or going through with ritualistic motions for performative sake. No. Being faithful of us requires that we be fashioned and refashioned over again as a people who are brought together into our community by our shared faith and our common goal of living in a world that is shaped by the dream of being a beloved community for our time and as an inheritance for generations to come. May we be bold in how we engage into that world and how do we live into our commitments. May it be so, and blessed be.
We are a gentle and people, and we are singing, singing for our hearts. We are a gentle and people, and we are singing.